Good morning, everyone. I've been asked to do this a lot. But actually, last week I was asked to do a presentation on New Orleans restaurants, that are my favorite restaurants, for a literature club in North Louisiana, that my mother is a part of. So I went and did that, and I thought I would do an online version because so many people have asked for the same thing, um, that I work with, and friends and family and other people that weren't able to be there in person. So this may be a little bit different than the one in person because it's a little bit different doing it by Zoom, on a video instead of doing it, in person. So, but I thought everybody would like this. This is a more family friendly New Orleans video. I'll tell you if it's not family friendly when we get there. But I wanted to show people that not only the food, some of the food and best restaurants that I love to go to, but also, some things to do in New Orleans that were a little bit friendlier toward, families. If you want the other version, I could show you that too, but that's pretty easy to find in New Orleans. These are the places, if you're looking for places on Bourbon Street, this is not going to be it. But locals don't usually use Bourbon Street that much anyway. Those are mostly tourists. Those aren't local New Orleans people. So there's so much more to New Orleans than Bourbon Street and even the quarter. Although there's some fun things in the quarter too that are very family friendly. So I'm gonna try to share my screen and give you the presentation if I can. Let's see. Ooh, I think that's it. So I'm hoping everyone can see this. Let's see. All right. So first of all, this is one of my favorite quotes about New Orleans. America has only three cities: New York, San Francisco, and New Orleans. Everywhere else is Cleveland. And the reason I love that quote so much by Tennessee Williams is that it's not only about the food in New Orleans, which it is a lot about the food because other cities are just packed with chain restaurants. And in New Orleans, it's not necessarily a chain restaurant, and it's never a chain restaurant if you want the good food. So chain restaurants don't last very long in New Orleans, inside the city limits. Now, outside in the suburbs, you'll find chain restaurants, but you'll find a lot of other type of restaurants too. So if you're going to New Orleans, never go to a chain restaurant. You always want to go to another type. So, it's also about the culture of New Orleans as well. And, New Orleans, there just isn't. New Orleans is an international city. So Louisiana, you have North Louisiana, you have below Alexandria, you have more of a Cajun country, and that surrounds Baton Rouge. And then there's and New Orleans, which is the Creole, but it's much more than just Creole. And there's a difference between Cajun and Creole. But it's more than just Creole, it's an international city. So you have all kinds of influences from all different places, including the Caribbean, African, Italian. Sicily had a huge immigration, to New Orleans. So there's lots of Italian places, lots of Sicilian places to eat. And then there was the American influence, and of course, the French and Spanish influence. New Orleans was owned by France, then it was owned by Spain, and then it was owned by France again, and then America. So it has all these different flavors. Plus, it's a port city, so in New Orleans, people come in on the port, and there's all kinds of people from all different nationalities, and all that's gone in to make, excuse the pun, but make a gumbo of not only food, but of people as well. So I want to tell you a little bit, first of all, what you have to do in New Orleans, because if you're trying to, um, get directions in New Orleans, it's a little bit difficult. So I'm going to point out, and I'm hoping you can see this. If you're coming from Texas, you're probably going to come in on I-10. And as you come into New Orleans, this is the main part of New Orleans. It's below by, I-10, but Gentilly's a part of it too, and Lakeview and Lakeshore. And then there's New Orleans East over here. But this is the heart of the city down here that kind of surrounds. You see the French Quarter in purple, and then Mid City, Esplanade Bridge, and in yellow you see Uptown, St. Charles Avenue, and then you go down into Marigny, Bywater, Lower Ninth Ward, and New Orleans East over here. So to get directions, you're actually coming in from the west. But if you'll see the marker up here that says north is up, you can see you're coming in from the west. This part down here, Algiers, which is in the New Orleans city limits, Old Algiers is in the New Orleans city limit. You get there by ferry or by bridge. Um, It is called the West Bank, although if you look at the map, it's in the south. So when you're asking for directions in New Orleans, you're never going to go by north, south, east, or west. All the roads are curved. The straightest road probably in New Orleans is Elysian Fields. You can see it right here in the middle, that white strip. That's probably the straightest road in New Orleans. They even changed names. So if you go down here, right above the quarter, and the CBD is the Central Business District, so that's downtown. So above this line was where the Americans settled. But below that line, the French and Spanish had already settled all of this area. So, especially the French Quarter first, and then they kind of moved out to this area. So, that line is the division, or was the division between the American side and the French and Spanish side, and African American and Caribbean side. And then along here, along the river on the docks, was where the Irish came in and worked, and where the Italians came in and worked, especially from Sicily. And then they moved throughout the city, but they mostly lived down in this area, even though they might have worked on the docks here when they first got there. So when I give directions or when I'm talking about the restaurants, I'm going to say toward the lake, toward the river, because that's how you give directions in New Orleans. So it's toward the river is on this side, toward the lake is over here. This is anything below Canal Street right here is downtown. Anything above is uptown. So there's uptown, downtown, lakeside, riverside. So as you hear me talk, I'll say those words instead of east, west, north, and south because you'll never get it that way. So let's get into some of the things to do first that are family friendly. First of all, I've got the quarter on there. Now, you have to realize the quarter is a neighborhood. It's not just a party place. So everybody thinks of the French Quarter, they think of Bourbon Street. And Bourbon Street is full of tourists and full of bars that you don't want to take your kids to. Not necessarily walk down Bourbon Street. But the rest of the quarter is very family friendly. Royal Street has lots of live music up and down the road. Then there's Jackson Square, and then there's over in the more neighborhood parts on Dauphine Street and over toward Rampart are all neighborhoods that people live and work in the quarter. So before 4:30 p.m., you can go just about anywhere in the quarter. I wouldn't necessarily take my kids walking down the street on Bourbon Street, although I did take my kids walking down the Bourbon Street. So, but during the day, and nighttime, even though Jackson Square and all that area, that is fine. Just remember, people live there too. And so if you go to Jackson Square, you're going to see the street musicians, the artists, the caricature artists that will draw you, fortune tellers, mimes, everything is in Jackson Square. And it's a lot of fun to go listen to live music just on the street music. So that is just fine to take your kids to Jackson Square and all of that area. Even Royal Street with all the antique shops and all of that's going on. The quarter changes at around 4:30 in the afternoon. And it turns into nighttime partying around that time, even on Bourbon Street. So the best time to hear the quarter if you have a family is to go early in the morning all the way up until like 4:30 in the afternoon, and you're going to be fine. You're not going to see things that you don't want your kids to see, if you're worried about that. So that's the quarter, and it's great to walk around the quarter. It's historical. The architecture is just unbelievably gorgeous and beautiful, and a lot of the architecture is Spanish. It's not necessarily French. It's a mixture. But when Spain owned New Orleans, the French Quarter had burned at one time, and this Spain actually rebuilt the quarter. So there's a lot of Spanish architecture with the courtyards and the wrought iron, all that is very Spanish. So they call it the French Quarter, but it's also Spanish. So the Spanish French Quarter or Vauquerie. The next one I've got on here is City Park and the Sculpture Garden. So City Park, there's much more than just the sculpture garden there. City Park is huge, and it's the same designer that built Central Park in New York. It's one of the largest urban natural parks in the world, and it's like a city into itself. And you will get lost in City Park, so I wouldn't advise just taking off and going because you'll find all kinds of things, and you will eventually find your way out. But it's big, and you can drive through City Park or you can walk through City Park. Anything you want to do or a combination of it is usually best. But City Park has a lot of things in it. There's the New Orleans Museum of Art, which I think I have on down on this list, which is free on, I think one day of the week it's free to go in, but they have all kinds of exhibits there. I saw when I was young the King Tut exhibit. Um, Thank you, Lou Murphy, for that. Anyway, I'll give a shout out to her, a person that really embodied New Orleans for me when I was young. So City Park and the sculpture garden is huge as well. It's a walking trail of sculptures and art. It has a waterway through it. It's really magical. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. It's a don't miss attraction when you go to New Orleans. Also in City Park, there's the Botanical Gardens, which does cost, but I think it's like $4 for adults and free for children, $5 for adults maybe. So this Botanical Gardens, beautiful gardens, all the Louisiana natural, and it's a subtropical plant. Well, it's actually tropical now. It used to be subtropical. Now it's a tropical environment and climate. So beautiful, beautiful tropical plants there that it's also a Cape Nest to me. You can also just walk around. There's basketball courts, there's putt-putt golf course, there's bayous to walk around, bridges over the bayous. There's a stadium there. The Old Tulane Stadium is there, which is where the first Super Bowl was played, by the way. Was in Old Tulane Stadium in City Park in New Orleans, before the Superdome was built. And I'm trying to think of what all else in City Park. You can get. I'm going to mention this later on when I talk about places to eat. But Cafe Du Monde is also in City Park. There's two locations. There's one in the corner in Jackson Square, and there's one in City Park. And the one in City Park is much more relaxed. So it's a very relaxed atmosphere. There's usually somebody out there with a saxophone or clarinet or trumpet or somebody singing, but just one person usually. It's not a whole bunch of live music. It's not a whole lot of people, except for a lot of families and a lot of kids playing. You'll also, if you go during the week, you'll see kids field trips all in City Park. But it's just a nice, relaxing place if you like beignets and Cafe au lait. So I always go there instead of the crowded one in the quarter. So they also have the Children's Museum there, which is one of the largest children's museums in the country. And it's this huge four-story building, and it's hidden and tucked away, but absolutely fantastic children's museum. So that's a don't miss if you have a family and you have children, young children especially. It's fun for adults as well. It's just a cool place. Also, I've got driving around and I'm outside of City Park now, but you can drive around City Park. But if you just drive around New Orleans, the architecture is amazing. New Orleans isn't just the quarter. So if you go down to Bywater and Marigny, which are below the quarter, downtown below the quarter, um, and explore some of those areas. Or if you go to Mid-City, which most of the homes in Mid-City are around 100 to 150 years old. Beautiful homes, beautiful streets, the oak tree lined avenues, beautiful areas all around New Orleans. And of course, there's uptown the Garden District, which most people know to take the streetcar and go up St. Charles and see some of the Garden District and big mansions. But also, if you Esplanade is my favorite street in New Orleans, as Esplanade really shows the big mansions that were built by the non-Americans. So they're closer to the street, but big mansions and beautiful tree-lined oak streets. Esplanade is just a gorgeous, gorgeous street. And that runs below the quarter all the way to City Park. So you can start at the river on Esplanade Avenue and drive straight through, and you'll go straight to City Park in Mid-City. And so right below the quarter on that one. The Lafitte Greenway is a park that goes from Mid-City, which Mid-City's toward the lake from the quarter. We're going toward the lake. And you can get to Mid-City with the streetcar. Streetcar down Canal Street will take you right into the heart of Mid-City. But Lafitte Greenway was this park, or is this park that's fairly new, but beautiful gardens, bike trails, exercise things. Of course, in basketball, tennis, all that stuff along the way. But you can also get a city bike and grab a city bike at one end and then drop it off at the other end. I think it's like $2 for a city bike to use one of those. Or you can, if you live there or you're staying there, you have a bicycle, you can ride it. Or you can just walk it and see all the beautiful gardens. And it was built as a flood zone as well. So the whole thought behind Lafitte Greenway was that the gardens would be there, but when New Orleans would flood or does flood, the water, there's big cisterns under Lafitte Greenway where the water goes into and it feeds the plants and it doesn't flood the streets. So that was part of the reason for Lafitte Greenway. It's just a beautiful, beautiful park full of nature and beauty and free to do. And it goes all the way from Mid City all the way to the quarter. So you can, or you could take a pathway off to the side and go to the Central Business District that way too. So people can ride their bikes to work if they work downtown. Audubon Zoo, absolutely gorgeous zoo. One of the prettiest in the country to me. And it's not only a zoo, it's gardens and zoo. So you get the old buildings and the beautiful enclosures and Audubon Zoo is just a great place to go and bring the kids. The aquarium is also owned by Audubon. But it's Aquarium of Americas, and it is unbelievably beautiful. And they've just remodeled it, redone it. It's at the end of Canal Street, easy walk from the quarter or the Central Business District, or what we call the Warehouse District, which maybe I'll talk about in just a few minutes. But it's right at the end of Canal, easy to get to. Beautiful aquarium. The World War II Museum is huge. It takes up 2 city blocks in the Central Business District. It's a can't miss. Full of just all kinds of memorabilia from World War II. Tells the story of World War II and the U.S. involvement in World War II. It also has letters from soldiers, real letters that are framed. They're really neat to read. All kinds of the military equipment used in World War II. The place is just absolutely huge. So get ready to walk a lot if you're going to the museum, World War II museum, especially with the new additions they've made. Frenchman Street, I'm not necessarily going to say this one's for families, but if you do want to go out and hear live music, you want to have adult night, French Quarter is commonly known to locals as the local Bourbon Street. It doesn't have all the risque stuff. It has live music and bars, coffee shops, and restaurants on it. It's below the quarter. You can walk to it from the quarter. It's in Marigny, which is right below the quarter. It's called the Marigny Triangle. And then that turns into Bywater. But Frenchman Street's a great street to go to. Everything's free to walk into. And just about this pretty much this way at any bar in New Orleans. There's a drink minimum, but if you don't drink, you can get a mocktail, alcohol free, and they're glad to make those for you. And they're a lot less than alcohol. So anyway, if you don't drink, it's fine too. But it's more of an adult night because it's live music and bars and restaurants and things like that. So that's not necessarily family friendly, although it's fine to walk through with your kids. But that's where the locals go to have a good time, is Frenchman Street. And then a walk through Marigny Bywater. The houses are gorgeous. You'll think you're still in the quarter pretty much when you walk past. If you walk through the quarter all the way down Bourbon Street or all the way down Royal or any street you choose, you'll come to Esplanade Avenue, and on the other side of Esplanade Avenue, below the quarter is Marigny and Bywater. That's where Frenchman Street is. But Marigny and Bywater are neighborhoods. They're kind of bohemian neighborhoods, hipster type neighborhoods, lots of cafes, lots of coffee shops, lots of restaurants, and there are a few bars here and there too. That's a great place to see architecture. The quarter, the buildings connect basically. In most of the quarter, the buildings connect. In Marigny and Bywater, the buildings have a little space between them, but they're still built right up to the street. So you're still getting a lot of those beautiful French Quarter style homes, but right on the street and absolutely beautiful to walk through Marigny and Bywater. And it's extremely safe neighborhood, by the way. And we could talk about safety some maybe toward the end. Um, Cemeteries. So the cemeteries are attraction all their own. They're called the cities of the dead in New Orleans because you don't bury people underground in New Orleans, mostly because of the water table. But the coffins would rise if you buried them underground. So there are family tombs in these cemeteries, and they're all over the city. There's one in the quarter. St. Louis #1 is in the quarter. But there's also Mid City has a whole lot of cemeteries, and then Old Metairie Cemetery is a beautiful one to go to with the monuments. They're just elaborate in Old Metairie Cemetery in New Orleans. So that's a great one to tour. You can go to cemetery tour. In fact, just about all of these, you can take a tour. You can get tour guides to take you, or you can just go. There's some cemeteries that aren't as safe, but they're locked up. So if you see a locked up cemetery, don't try to get in. Pickpockets and people that will rob you sometimes are behind some of those big, huge monuments. So you don't want to walk in a cemetery by yourself and some of these old ones that are locked up. But the ones that are open are very open and you can go in and they're extremely safe. And some of the tombs you'll see have multiple names on them, and that's because you didn't just bury one person in a tomb, it was a family tomb. So people were buried in the same tomb over and over, and as generations went by. You can find them all the way from the 1600s up till now, and they're still being built. So the cemeteries are not they're a don't miss. They're a great place to go to. There's all kinds of other museums there. Um, there's even like a pharmacy museum. There's a history of New Orleans museum. There's a Black History museum. There's all kinds of museums all over New Orleans. You can't walk down the street without seeing some type of museum. So go into some of these smaller museums. Sometimes they're a couple of bucks to get in, not much. Sometimes they're free. You can go to the Voodoo Museum if you wish. But the museums are great places to take the kids. Cemeteries are great to take the kids too. They're fun. They're a neat place to see. They become an attraction all to themselves. I've got Magazine Street here. Magazine Street, and you'll find this all around New Orleans. These neighborhoods are basically towns to themselves. So Magazine Street's uptown, but it is a string of, you'll think you're in a small town when you're there. And it's full of restaurants and cafes and coffee shops and it play a lot of antique shops. The Magazine Street has changed a lot since I've lived there. Magazine Street used to be go antique shopping on Magazine Street. But now Magazine Street's pretty expensive. So if you want to go shopping for antiques, there's better places to go than Magazine Street. If you want that one special thing, Magazine Street's a great place to go, and you've got the money to spend, great. But still, don't miss out on going up there and walking by and walking through some of those places are great. And it's in a neighborhood. The neighborhood surrounds Magazine Street, but the whole street of Magazine Street looks like a city to itself. So it's also a great place to go and visit, and great place to walk around with the kids. Crescent Park is the newest park in New Orleans, I believe, newest big park anyway. There's all kinds of smaller parks, but Crescent Park goes if you're in the quarter and you're on the Riverfront Park, which is across from Jackson Square on the river, and you keep walking down past the quarter and into Marigny and Bywater, Crescent Park just runs right along the river all the way down. Beautiful greenery, the gardens are beautiful, bike trails, just everything you could imagine is beautiful is there. So sculptures, Crescent Park's turned into a really, really nice, beautiful place to go. Audubon Park. The thing about Audubon Park is I think City Park is prettier than Audubon Park. Audubon Park is right off of St. Charles Avenue, so it's right in the middle of the Garden District. And it's right across the street from Tulane University, which is a beautiful university to go see as well. But Audubon Park, my favorite thing about it, and I actually think it has yeah, it does. It has the oldest oak tree in the world, is in Audubon Park. And don't ask me how old that is. I think it's 1600s, 1500s. They've tried to time how old it is, and it's actually propped up some of the limbs because they've hit down and swooped along the ground. But Audubon Park, the best part about it is on one side of Audubon Park, and if you're looking straight at Audubon Park from St. Charles, it's on the left side, um, toward the downtown side. Uh, you'll see homes, and those are prettier than the homes on St. Charles to me. Some of them aren't quite as big as the St. Charles mansions, but they are mansions and they're big. And a lot of them face the park. The front faces the park. So if you drive to them, you have to come in, that they come in through the back when they're in their car, but their front yard is Audubon Park. And you can go right past these homes. One of my favorite things to do. Audubon Zoo is right behind that toward the river, on the river. So you can walk through Audubon Park to get to Audubon Zoo. But walking along, there's a bayou. There's all kinds of sculptures, and it's a beautiful place. I like City Park a little bit better, but if I'm going to look at homes, I'm going to Audubon Park. Audubon Park. The Sanger Theater's downtown. It's where the first opera in the United States was ever held, was at the Sanger Theater. There were so many Italians coming in, so there was an Italian opera. There was a French opera too. The Sanger Theater hosts a lot of, I saw Broadway stuff. I saw Cats there, but I've also seen like Cher do a concert there. I've seen all kinds of things. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that I went to there, but it's always events happening at Sanger Theater. But if you just go, just don't to go and take a tour, you can do that during the day. You just have to find the times, look up what times they're open for a tour. It's a majestic place, that place, and you would never guess from the outside. It's right on Canal Street. You'd never guess from the outside what the place looks like on the inside. But you go in, and first there's a strip of like a cityscape, and you can go into shops and restaurants and things inside. But then you go into the main part of the theater, and the top is dome shaped, and it's the color of the sky with stars. So it looks like you're outside. And then there's big, huge statues that line all the way around it. So it looks like you're in like a Roman theater. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. The theater itself is worth seeing. And if you can find a great act to go see there, oh, Pay the Bell was another one I saw there. So the new acts come, and then they have Broadway plays and other plays, and so off Broadway plays. So always worth it to go to the Sanger if you get a chance. It's a little expensive at times, depending on what the show is. But you can tour it, and I think the tours are free or like $5 to $10. For adults, most things children are free. Great place to take the kids to see it too. It's a magical place. I've got Jackson Square. I talked a little bit about Jackson Square earlier. It's full of artists, musicians, fortune tellers, mime, everything you can imagine is in Jackson Square. Very safe for the children, especially before 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon. Go there in the mornings, go there during the day, stroll across the street, go to Cafe de Monde, and then walk from Cafe de Monde down to I think I've got the French Market on here. Stop at Aunt Sally's Pralines, best pralines you'll ever have, or at Aunt Sally's, and they have all different flavors of pralines. I like the plain, I like the rum ones, but they're all good. Even the chocolate ones are delicious. But Aunt Sally's has been there forever. And then the French Market is an open air market, and some of it has been, it's got a permanent cover on top of it. But it's open air, and it's been there, way before the United States. It was the United States. So people shop there. But people that live in the quarter and in Bightwire and Marigny still shop there for foods. They get fresh fruits and vegetables, all kinds of fish and seafood and all kinds of things. And you can eat in the French Quarter, I mean, in the French Market now. So there's places where you can actually stop and sit down and have food that you might not have ever had before. You might get some fried alligator. You might get some andouille sausage. You might get, no telling what you can get. Fried okra is unbelievable. Okra is wonderful down there. Um, so anyway, the French Market is worth going to. At the end of the French Market, it turns into souvenir shops now. That used to not be there, but it's souvenir shops, and then it kind of turns into kind of a flea market after that. And then you're on Esplanade Avenue, and you can walk down into Marigny. So it's a great place to stroll from Jackson Square, Cafe de Monde, all the way down. You'll pass Central Market, great for muffaladas, where the muffalata was invented, which was invented from Italian. Again, that Sicilian influence is heavy there. So then I've got the St. Louis Cathedral. St. Louis Cathedral is an operating cathedral. It's a church, and they still have mass there. So you can go to mass at St. Louis Cathedral. It's wonderful. Or if mass isn't happening, they have concerts there. Like different bands or from schools. Like high school kids, or gospel choirs. But you can also go and just tour it. So it's always open. The doors are just like any Catholic um, place where you go to mass, well, the cathedral. So it's always open. You can go in. It's worth going in. It's a beautiful, beautiful cathedral. Um, The Cabildo, I'm going to skip Old Ursuline Convent right now, but the Cabildo is right next to St. Louis Cathedral, and it's a museum, and you can go in. I don't remember how much it is, but it's not much. And you can go in, and that's where the Louisiana Purchase was signed. So that's where the French signed over New Orleans to the United States, or actually the whole Louisiana Purchase, which was a huge area, to the United States. So you can go in there and go to the museum, and it's a really neat, and they have different exhibits there too. But the main feature is that's where the Louisiana Purchase was signed. And then going back up to the Old Ursuline Convent, that's also in the quarter. Old Ursuline Convent was a working convent until pretty recently. But it is a convent, I believe it was built in 1733, and still there. There was an addition made in 1750s. Um, Beautiful, beautiful, to go through and to see what a convent was like. And it's built around this big courtyard in the middle too. So worth going through there and seeing what a convent was like in the 1700s. The last thing I have on here is Oak Street. Oak Street, very family friendly as well. Oak Street, and there's a coffee shop, and I've got that when I get into the coffee shops. But Oak Street is full of just restaurants and cafes. I don't think there's any bars on Oak Street, or there may be one, but it's mostly just for families. I call it the poor man's magazine street. If you really want to go into shops and get some antiques and things, and you really want to go and have a good time and go to cafes that aren't so expensive, Oak Street's the place. So it's a great place. It also looks like a city, and it's uptown. And you can get there by streetcar. If you take the streetcar all the way from Canal Street, right above the border, it's the oldest streetcar and running streetcar in the nation, and it will take you all the way up St. Charles through the Garden District, and it curves around and hits Carrollton, which used to be a town of its own, but it's in New Orleans now. Um, for a long time now. But anyway, the Carrollton area, it curves around and hits Carrollton, and you'll go right past Oak Street. And Oak Street is, if you get off there, you can walk, see beautiful homes. It's in a neighborhood, but it looks like a town. It looks like a city, like a lot of areas in New Orleans do. It's a city made up of towns. So that's Oak Street. So I kind of want to do some of the things to do with your family. I would not miss City Park. And another thing at City Park I didn't mention was the nursery land, fairy tale land, which you see my picture there with Humpty Dumpty. That's what that is, the entrance to it. But back behind there are all kinds of like Mother Hubbard and the shoe, and your kids can crawl and play. It's for small kids. So anybody under 8 years old would love it. So a great place to take the kids to that. And there's probably about 100 different, playground equipment, all from nursery rhymes and fairy tales. Um, and you can even go into the Hansel and Gretel house, things like that. There's also a small area that is like has a Ferris wheel and a carousel and all that and food booths. So that's a nice place to go as well. All it's a city park. If you haven't noticed yet, I'm saying go to City Park. It's so worth it. All right. So one more thing, then we're gonna get to the restaurants, or my favorite restaurants anyway. The festivals and events. So Mardi Gras, everybody thinks it's just this wild, crazy, because what they show on TV on Mardi Gras is Bourbon Street. And yes, that's where all the tourists are, and they're all drinking. And no, I would not take the kids on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras. Not a good idea. Mardi Gras is a long period of time, and it works its way up to Lent. So Fat Tuesday and then Wednesday, Ash Wednesday. But this year it started on January 6th, and Mardi Gras Day was on March 4th. That changes each year depending on when Lent falls. But there are parades, there's hundreds of parades that go on, and I'm not exaggerating that. They're in all the suburbs. The whole city celebrates Mardi Gras. So you don't go to one spot to go to Mardi Gras. The whole city celebrates it. And there's plenty of family-friendly places to watch parades. So the one I would recommend the highest if you have a family for one of the mega parades. There's lots of walking parades and bands and things like that for months leading up to Mardi Gras Day, Fat Tuesday. But if you want to see one of the big mega parades, which is there's Bacchus, Endymion, Orpheus, Zulu, Rex. Where I would go would be to Mid City and catch Endymion Parade, which is one of the big, huge mega parades. There's always a star. I think the last one I went to, Dolly Parton, was the Queen of Endymion. Um, and so you get to see things up close and personal. It's not crowded in Mid City like it is downtown. And downtown, you're looking at 50 rows of people back if you're on Canal Street watching a mega parade, where in Mid City, you're looking at 5 to 10 people back. But people bring their kids to these, so they're very family friendly in those areas. So if you're going to a parade, I would recommend Endymion Parade. It's the Saturday before Mardi Gras, always a Saturday before Fat Tuesday, and it is people put ladders. You'll see ladders everywhere. People camped out all day waiting for the parade. The ladders, they put a seat on top of them usually, and for small children, they put up on the ladders so the children could catch the beads or throws. Great place for kids. It's a great atmosphere. Yes, there's a little drinking that goes on, but it's very, very family friendly. It's also one of my favorite parades because I used to live a block off of Canal Street in Mid City, and so we always had Endymion parties. And so we have Endymion parties. We opened the doors and people would come and go, and it was families, it was kids, it was everybody. And there's always free food around. People invite you into their home. If you see an open door, you usually can just go right in, get you a bowl of gumbo and get you a drink if you want. But always festive, always fun, very family friendly in that area. Um, Bacchus Parade's huge. It's on Sunday before Fat Tuesday, and I would catch that one uptown around Tulane University. That's a more, it's some college age kids there, but that's a more family because you got so many neighborhoods right there. So it's a decent place to go and take your family to. But I highly recommend Endymion. If you're going to a parade, don't go to a parade downtown on Canal right by Bourbon Street or right by the quarter. Then you're going to get the rowdiness. That's where the huge, huge crowds are that you can't move. You're squeezed together. You can't move. So if you got a family, Endymion Mid City, my biggest recommendation. Jazz Fest, don't take your kids to Jazz Fest. Jazz Fest is all in one place. It's at the fairgrounds, and there's always great acts. There's great music. The gospel tent is unbelievable. It's black gospel mostly, and everybody's singing, everybody's dancing, everybody's having a good time. Great place to go if it's just you and your partner. All kinds of food booths, foods that you would never get to try otherwise because you'd have to go to so many restaurants. But there's hundreds of food booths, art booths, and then there's like probably about 15 different stages, and tents that you can go into to enjoy the music. Great experience, great time. Don't bring the kids. It's hot, first of all, and there's lots of drinking and lots of fun, but you can go and have a good time if you're adults going. I wouldn't recommend kids for that. The Creole Tomato Fest is in the quarter. Great place to go. Bring the kids to Tomato Fest during the day in the quarter. Bayou Boogaloo is in Mid City. It's on Bayou St. John that runs through Mid City. And again, food booths, live music. It's on the bayou, so there's lots of people floating down the bayou on floats and things, or staked out on the bayou. Um, it's an excellent place for kids, and it's all family fun. So Bayou Boogaloo is a great one to go to. French Quarter Festival's in the French Quarter. Go during the day, bring your kids, great food, great music. You can't beat it. Halloween. Okay, so several things about Halloween. Halloween in New Orleans, as far as the events that happen around Halloween, it's almost as big as Mardi Gras, not as big as Mardi Gras, but almost as big. Everybody gets into Halloween. So the parties and things like that are adults. Okay, everybody's dressed up, everybody's drinking, but the houses are all decorated, and that's the thing to take the kids to because it is fun decorations. And if you go up St. Charles, especially up in the Garden District, you're going to see beautiful homes decorated just unbelievably, and light shows that are unbelievable. Same thing in Mid City and Bywater, they're all decorated, so it's great to drive around during Halloween and see that. And if you're into haunted houses, there's a great one called the Mortuary, which was an old mortuary in a cemetery that's now a haunted house. So it's pretty cool to go to. Christmas time, Same as Halloween. Christmas time is wonderful in New Orleans. Everything's decorated. Going to some of the hotel lobbies are just really unbelievable. But all the homes are decorated. The whole city gets into Christmas. There's lots of Christmas events happening. Celebration in the Oaks is during Christmas time, and it's a don't miss in City Park. The light show is just spectacular, and you're going to want to see it. I can't describe it because it's just so much. But a lot of fun, a lot of food, some music, but mostly just the lights, and it is just unbelievable. So I would definitely recommend Celebration in the Oaks during Christmas in New Orleans. It's also fun just to go downtown and go shopping during Christmas in a downtown atmosphere, which is all festive and nice. So that's a cool thing. And Celebration in the Oaks is definitely a place for the kids. It's very, very, very family friendly. And lots of rides and things they can go on too. St. Patrick's Day, more adult oriented. But if you go to Mid City on Bayou St. John, there's always a lot of fun around in that area. Bayou St. John's very Irish area. There's also a place called the Irish Channel, which is very Irish, and they turn the water green. But there's a little more heavier partying in that area. I'd go to Mid City. I'd go to Bayou St. John on St. Patrick's. You'll have a good time with family. And then we finally get to the main part of the presentation, which is restaurants, because food's an event all by itself in New Orleans. And that's why a lot of people go to New Orleans is for the food. So I've divided these into different areas. There's like a one money sign, $2 bill sign, $3 bill, and $4 bill. And that's as high as I went. Those are loose. Look at the menus. Also, some big hints is go if you go in the summer. They have specials a lot of the times at the restaurants because it's so hot, especially in August. So they have this event where they call, I forgot what it's called, but it's something to do with cooling down. But specials at restaurants during that time. But it is hot outside, so not my highest recommendation is to go in August. That would be it's unbearable heat and humidity. But another big thing is to eat your big meal at noon or around 1 o'clock, and you get those lunch prices. Go somewhere else for dessert. And that way you hit two places and go somewhere else for breakfast. That's three. Save yourself a lot of money by doing that, even at the nicer restaurants. If you get with the lunch menu, it's cheaper. And you can fill up at that point and have something lighter during, in the evening if you wish. So I'll get to some of them. First of them, I got the $1 sign. Parkway Tavern is Po' Boys. It's in Mid City. It's going toward the lake from the quarter. Um, Great place to go, great atmosphere. Bubs. It says burgers and sandwiches, but you've never had burgers like this. I guarantee you, it is a fun place to go. So it's fun and it's really, really, really good. The sandwiches are just off the charts. So that's also in Mid City toward the lake. Camellia Grill. Camellia Grill will fool you. You hear a lot about Camellia Grill. It's okay. It's not my favorite place, but it's okay place. It's uptown. It's on the Carrollton. It's on the St. Charles Carrollton streetcar line, so you can jump off there. It's close to Oak Street, in fact. The sandwiches and burgers. It's a go up to the counter, order, and then go sit down. But very, very good sandwiches there. Biscuits and buns on Banks. That's in Mid City. They have Southern style food, and it's absolutely great. And it says biscuits and buns, but it's also lunch and dinner as well. But I would go for a breakfast there. Great breakfast. I always put Betsy's Pancake House on my list of favorite places. It is nothing fancy. It looks like a 1950s diner, and it is nondescript. It's right on Canal Street in Mid City. So going away from the quarter toward the lake on Canal Street. You'll pass it by real easy unless you're really looking for it. But it's where everybody goes. And if you want to see local celebrities, that's the place you'll see local celebrities. I've seen Brad Pitt there, Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Coolidge. Delta Burke, they go to these places. And the politicians go there too. So you'll see the mayor. Sometimes if the governor's in town, you'll see the governor. Um, and you would never guess this would be the place, but it's where the people are. So the local people are. So if you want votes, you're going to go there. And if you want to be not being noticed and you're a star, you can go there. And it has that great New Orleans accent, which is not really Southern. It's more of a Bronx type, accent. So you'll hear that accent there, and it's a great place to go to. Really cheap. I mean, you're gonna get out of Betsy's Pancake House cheaper than you would get out of a McDonald's. Well, about the same price as a McDonald's, maybe a little bit more. Great food though. The breakfast is exceptional. Pancakes are unbelievably good. Satsuma's is in the Bywater. That's below the quarter, so downtown below the quarter, in Bywater, Marigny, and then Bywater. Satsuma's is the hipster spot. It's the bohemian type cafe, really cool place. Everything's in a neighborhood, and almost every one of these places are in neighborhoods. So there's houses all around. You get to sightsee when you go to them. Satsuma's is a really cool place to go. Get a cup of coffee, get one of their spectacular dishes. Just a great place. So you'll really like Satsuma's. It's my favorite breakfast spot. Betsy's for normal breakfast, but cool people. Satsuma's to people watch and to see all the artists and musicians come and go is a lot of fun. Great. There's a little antique shop right by it too, which is really cool. And I used to work right down from Satsuma's at Project Lazarus. But Satsuma's is a really I'd put it on a don't miss. It's a good place to go. Fun. So here's the $2 ones. We got the Joint Barbecue, best barbecue you've ever had. It's in Bywater, right below the quarter. Old looking place with a little bitch out front. Not much to look at from the outside, but a really cool vibe inside. And it's got all those people from Bywater and Marigny, all the artists and musicians that go there. Really fun place to go. Palace Cafe, that's right on Canal Street downtown. And Palace Cafe is a nice restaurant for not as much money. So seafood, you regular New Orleans fare, what you would expect when you go to New Orleans. So great place to go for a little less money than going to some of the more expensive restaurants, but excellent food and excellent presentation. You're going to like Palace Cafe a lot. Napoleon House, it's Creole food. So seafood, but steaks, chicken, everything you can imagine, but done in a Creole way. That's in the quarter. Louisiana Pizza Kitchen's not just your regular pizza place. And I always go to Louisiana Pizza Kitchen when I go back home now. Um, Louisiana Pizza Kitchen is more of a New York style pizza than a Chicago style. It's thin crust, all kinds of things with the Louisiana flair. So if you eat seafood, they got seafood type pizzas, but they also have all kinds of creative other type pizzas too. So it's a very creative place, very fun place, neat place to go to. And it's right across from the French Market. So it's in the quarter, but it's almost on Esplanade. So if you know where the Mint is, which okay, the Mint's the old Mint, U.S. Mint. There's a building there, it's a museum now. But if you go to the French Market, you'll see Louisiana Pizza Kitchen. It's right there in the corner, across from there. So then there's Willie Mae Scotch House. I'm just going to kind of go through these a little bit quicker because it's going to go pretty long, but you'll have them as a reference if you want to come back to this. Willie Mae Scotch House, great place to go. It's in Treme, which is the oldest black neighborhood in the United States that's still going. Freed black neighborhood in the United States. So that was always Treme is a great place to go to and great place to explore and beautiful. Louis Armstrong Park is gorgeous, but that's right there in Treme. So Willie Mae Scotch House is great fried chicken and Little Dizzy's is the same. Both of them unbelievable fried chicken. These are soul food places. These two places. Up and Adam, a little bit more upscale breakfast place, right on Canal Street, but it's in an old house, so can't miss. And have their cheese grits. Their cheese grits are unbelievable, and their chicken and waffles are great. But it is a breakfast place. Elizabeth's in Bywater, right below the quarter. Elizabeth's is a neighborhood cafe with excellent food and excellent presentation. So it's always highly ranked, even though it's very on the outside, very non-assuming house. So really cool place to go. St. Roch Market, that's a really cool. Okay, St. Roch from the quarter, it's toward the lake. But if you go the quarter and then Marigny Bywater, St. Roch is right beside those toward the lake. And beautiful neighborhood with the old homes that you'll love walking around. St. Roch Market used to be just a regular market. And when it closed down, they made it into an experimental food kitchen. So you can go in, it's like a food mall, and all the up and coming chefs try their food out there. Or before they open a restaurant, they see if it's going to take off. So it's a great place to go experiment with food that you've never had before and really different foods. So St. Roch Market's I highly recommend going and just checking it out. It's different every time you go. There's a different group of people have their places set up. It's all inside a building, beautiful place inside, and you can go there and try different types of food from up and coming chefs in New Orleans, for very little money. Parkway Bakery, is toward the lake. It's a bakery, but you can also get, like lunch foods there too. But go and get your king cake at Parkway Bakery, when Mardi Gras season comes around. So great place to go, great people. You're gonna have a good time. They're fun people that wait on you. The staff is great. Just a wonderful place to go. Port of Call is a little touristy. It's right below the quarter on Esplanade, so it borders the quarter and Marigny. Um, it's the good thing I could say, unbelievable burgers. If you like hamburgers, these are big, huge, really good burgers that are not like burgers you have at home or anywhere else. But the main thing about Port of Call is, first of all, you're gonna have to wait in line. There's usually about 30 people on the outside in line at all times after like 3 in the afternoon. But they have live music. And so to go and eat and listen to live music in a neat place, that's a cool place to go to. So that's why I always include it on here, even though it's a little bit touristy. And you can check out who's going to be playing there by just looking at their website, and it'll tell you who's playing there what night of the week. So you can pick on blues or jazz or gospel, whatever is your choice. Um, the Neville brothers, Charmaine Neville is their sister. She plays there quite often still. So the $3 Simons, Niao is one of my favorite places. It's in Mid City. And it is just, it's on Bienville Avenue in Mid City. So from the quarter going toward the lake, in Mid City. It's in a neighborhood and unbelievably great food. Treat yourself to Neo's if you can. The one thing I will tell you though, to be warned about, it is an upstairs restaurant. So on the outside, you'll see the big sign saying Neo's, and then you have to walk up. You go through these little doors and you walk up this steep set of steps before you get to the really nice restaurant upstairs. It's not that expensive, and you can get specials there that are much cheaper, than like some of the, Brennan's and Arno's and some of those places, but really good food. So I would definitely check out Neo's. Ralph's on the Park. If you want an elegant atmosphere for not quite the price of Commander's Palace and some of those places, beautiful place to eat. Regular New Orleans Creole seafood and gumbos, etouffee, jambalaya, all those things. Ralph's on the Park is right across from City Park, going toward the lake from the quarter, and right by City Park. So it's a great place to go if you're going to City Park too. Santa Fe, and everybody laughs about, I mentioned this because it sounds like it's a Mexican restaurant, and it is in a way. It's Spanish. It's a Spanish restaurant with a New Orleans flair. So there's lots of seafood in there. But it's a great place to go, and you can sit outside and eat on Esplanade Avenue. You can't get a better thing than that. You can people watch, you can look at the beautiful homes. The neighborhood is just gorgeous. The oak trees going right through Esplanade Avenue. I love Santa Fe Restaurant. It's a great place to go and a neighborhood place. So you'll see other people there and they have their own seats. So, ask the waitress, is that seat taken before you sit down outside? Because there's locals that go there every night or 3 times a week, and that's their seat. So always check that. But great place to go. Cafe de Gars is a really cool place. It's also on Esplanade, toward the lake from the quarter. And Cafe de Gars is where the artist Degas, actually, his home is right behind it, and he built his sister home that's right beside that. And Cafe de Gars is right on Esplanade, so the houses are a little bit behind it. I believe you can tour his home. I believe you can. But Cafe de Gars is a really cool small place They actually built it around an oak tree. So when you go in, the oak tree's in the middle of the cafe. Lots of good seafood choices there. I like when I go to Cafe de Gala, I like to get the cheese platter because all kinds of different cheeses on a platter, and you get like a charcuterie board, or you can get cheeses only and breads, and it's really, really good. You'll like it. Denny's Seafood is that classic Louisiana seafood place. Not much to look at. The restaurant, it looks kind of like Betsy's Pancake House. It looks like a 1950s, restaurant. But it is toward the lake. It's actually on the lake in Bucktown, on Bucktown, which is the area of New Orleans. Lots of fried seafood. So you get fried fish, fried shrimp. They have crawfish. They have other like redfish and blackened fish and things like that. And they also have like catfish, stuff like that. But Denny's, if you want that, what you think about when you think of Louisiana fried seafood, Denny's is the place to go. So good place for that. I have Mandina's on here. I used to live a block up in Mid City from Mandina's. So from the corner going down Canal Street, you can get there by streetcar. And Mandina's is, we always joked that it was the mafia place to go. It's very Sicilian. It's been there forever. And over 100 years. And you feel like when you go in, you feel like you're in the movie The Godfather. And that's what it feels like. And it's really cool. So you'll really like Mandina's. Nice, nice restaurant. I mean, the white tablecloths, the waiters and outfit, it's a nice restaurant. But we always laughed about being about the mafia restaurant. Dookie Chase restaurant. Everybody's heard of Dookie Chase restaurant. I think Leah Chase on that. Really nice place. A lot of times, if you go to Dookie Chase, it's a mixture of soul food and Creole food, mostly Creole, but there's some soul food like fried chicken and things in there too. A lot of times they'll have a buffet, which is great because buffets are um, a good way to sample lots of different things. But best gumbo in town and best etouffee in town. So I definitely recommend Dookie Chase. And it's in Treme as well. Muriel's on the Square, all kinds of fare for there. So they have all kinds of foods that you can choose from, mostly Creole. But great place to go, and it's right in Jackson Square. So if you're out walking around and you want to go to Muriel's, I would go at lunch, bring the family, and then go over to Cafe Du Monde and get coffee and beignets after. Perfect setup. And Muriel's is a beautiful restaurant and really good food. The Blue Crab Restaurant and Oyster Bar is on the lake. It's on the lakefront. It is also kind of like Deanie's, except not as much fried. They have lots of boiled food, but they also have, fried and barbecued oysters. If you want that big, huge platter of crawfish, boiled crawfish, that's the place. Or fried shrimp or boiled shrimp and crawfish and with the corn and everything in it, that's the place to go to. So that's a good place to go. And it's right on the lake. So you're watching the huge lake that looks like an ocean. If you've never seen Lake Pontchartrain, it looks like an ocean. So you're right on the water there. The gumbo shop is in the quarter. I recommend that if you want to try the different types of gumbo. There are three main types of gumbo. There is Cajun gumbo, which is delicious. And then there's a take on Cajun gumbo, which is filet gumbo, which a lot of Cajuns make. Filet is a herb that tastes very earthy. So you put that in your gumbo. I always put that in my gumbo. And then they have Creole gumbo, which when you see me make gumbo at home, you'll see all my South Louisiana friends that aren't from New Orleans but are from South Louisiana saying, "No, you've got tomatoes in your gumbo. You can't do that." In New Orleans, a Creole gumbo does have tomatoes. So that's one of the big differences. But you can get a three. You can get a sample gumbo plate and get three different types of gumbo. Excellent place to go if you want to try the different gumbos. This one are these are the expensive ones that you all have heard the names of probably. Commander's Palace, Brennan's, Quarter Two Sisters, Emerald's, Antoine's, Arnaud's, Galatoire's. All of these are excellent places. They're like the 5 and 7 course meals. A lot of them are not Quarter Two Sisters, but the rest of them are. And of course, you can get just one main plate of something. What I do, and here's your financial tip again, is eat a big lunch, and then go to Quarter Two Sisters and have the Bananas Foster. You get the place if you go like around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you get the place almost to yourself. You're sitting in a courtyard, and they make the Bananas Foster right by the table. Perfect to go for that. At most of these places, you need a reservation. At Quarter Two Sisters, you don't during the day. You can pretty much just walk up. The rest of them definitely call for a reservation. These are those foods that are presented just unbelievable. These are the famous shelves. This is the best of the best. These are the expensive places to go. Commander's Palace is probably the most expensive of all these. And I would put probably Antoine's and Galatore's next, then Arnaud's and Brennan's, and then down to Quarter Two Sisters. All very expensive. Go at lunch or go have a dessert at one of these places. That's the way to do it. Because you can go to some great food places in New Orleans and then go have dessert at one of the fancy places afterwards, if you want to save money. Um, so then last category, desserts and coffee. So for Two Sisters from Bananas Foster, like what I was talking about. Hudak Coffee House has food as well as coffee. It's in Bywater below the quarter. Great place. You can sit outside in the neighborhood, in the Bywater neighborhood. You'll love it. It's right across from a church they just remodeled, old historic church. But really cool place to go. PJ's Coffee and CC's Coffee are both all over the city. When you're in New Orleans, you don't go to Starbucks, you go to PJ's or CC's. They're the original coffee creators. So they're great places to go to. Stop anytime you feel like you need to pick me up of coffee or tea or anything else you want. And they have great like baked goods too at all these places. So those you'll see everywhere. Bricado's another can't miss in Mid City. So it's going toward the lake from the quarter. Bricado's has been owned by the same family for 123 years now, I think. 127 years. Um, it's been owned and operated by the same family, and it's very Sicilian, very Italian. Go for some gelato or cannoli, something like that. All kinds of Italian sweets. And the coffee's just to die for, or espresso, or you can get a latte, you can get anything you want. Um, Excellent place to go and a cultural place to go. You're going to want to go. You're going to see pictures on the wall of the family, all the way going back to late 1800s, early 1900s, all the way to today, and the family still operates it. So 90% of the staff there are from Angelo Bricado, is the one that started it, are his descendants. So it stayed in the family all this time. It's been open all this time. Great place to go. Great desserts. You'll love it there. Cafe Desire. The only reason I have Cafe Desire on there, this is in the quarter on Bourbon. Okay. If you go in the mornings, you're okay. It's just like 2 blocks down, 3 blocks down on Bourbon from Canal Street. So you're not getting into the thick of Bourbon Street. But the bread pudding, that is the best bread pudding in the city to me. You put that in your mouth, it just melts with that rum sauce. It's just excellent bread pudding. So I always go to Cafe Desire just for the bread pudding. That's all I have there. Rue de la Course is uptown. That's by Oak Street. You can take the St. Charles streetcar all the way around on Carrollton, get off on Oak Street. Rue de la Course is right there. It's a coffee shop with bakery and coffee shop. It's in an old bank, and it's really cool old bank. And for my mother, it's First National Bank. It was a First National Bank, but early in the early 1900s, I think, is when this bank was built. And it's this huge, huge building, and Oak Street's right behind it, so you can go shopping on Oak Street. Like I said, Oak Street's the poor man's magazine street. So you can go shopping on Oak Street. You can eat at cafes on Oak Street. You can get coffee at Rue de la Course. It's just great to people watch there. And then you can walk through the neighborhood and see all the beautiful architecture. Just absolutely gorgeous. Cafe de Monde, I've already talked about Cafe de Monde. Of course, that's the beignets and Cafe au lait. They say that Cafe Beignet has better beignets, and I tend to agree. That's another restaurant, Cafe Beignet. But Cafe de Monde has the atmosphere. So if you want the crowds and the live music and all that, and family, fine for families. In Jackson Square, go to the one in the quarter on Jackson Square. But if you want to go for relaxing cafe au lait and beignet, go to City Park. and sit down under the majestic oak trees, and you can go inside or outside of this building, and it's right on a little bayou that goes through. Beautiful, quiet, serene, and relaxing, and plenty of room for the kids to play very, very, very safely. So I think that's it. Here's some pictures. I did want to say one thing about safety. New Orleans is extremely safe. It really is. You don't go into certain areas at night just because they're a little bit riskier. But if you're in mid-city, downtown, uptown, Bywater, Marigny, Treme, and even much of the Ninth Ward, you're going to be fine. You're safe. The quarter has the most police presence, so that's where you're going to have lots of policemen around at all times. They don't. You can drink in New Orleans, as you probably know, with the go cups. There's people drinking and walking with go cups. You can go up and talk to the cops. They'll dance with you. They have fun, but they also enforce the law, so no fighting, and they watch out for that. And they watch out for any crimes. But I've always found New Orleans to be safe. And the whole time I lived down there, I only had one crime committed against me, and it was so minor, and it was actually funny. Is a friend of mine had come down to visit me in New Orleans, and she had parked her car. In New Orleans, it's mostly just parallel parking. You're lucky if you get a driveway. So she had a brand new Cadillac, and she pulled it right up in front of my house. And we woke up the next morning, and the window was broken, and they had taken what we used to call fuzzbusters, which are to track cops. So we didn't know how to report it to the police. We called the police and we said somebody broke into the car, and they were asking what they took, and we had to, and the only thing we could think is fuzzbuster, and then just started laughing. So that's the only time I ever had happen to be in New Orleans, because if you're safe and you're walking with groups of people, and you're in an area that looks like there's plenty going on. And New Orleans is the most walkable city in the country, so you can walk everywhere or take a streetcar at least, and then you get out and walk. So there's plenty of people around at all times. If you ever find yourself by yourself on a deserted street, yeah, I'd worry a little bit. But that's rarely ever going to happen. So always go down there and feel very, very, very safe. And I can do a whole nother video on safety tips, but this isn't for that. It's mostly for the food, but with the attractions as well. I do have some pictures up here. This top one up here is City Park. That's the part of the sculpture garden. So some of the trails that walk through the sculpture garden in City Park. Down below that is in Mid City. And my house where I lived is right next to the big white one. I lived in the smaller one right there. There's a really nice home in Mid City. Down below that is the St. Charles streetcar line. You can always tell the St. Charles streetcar line because it's the green one. So if you want to go St. Charles and on to Carrollton, grab the green one. By the river, there's a red one, and the one that goes down Canal Street over to City Park, down to City Park through Mid City is red. Um, a picture of me in Alderman Park. Up at the next one up here is Rue de la Course. That's the old bank building that's now a coffee shop and bakery, and really cool place to go and see. Next to that is in City Park. Down below that is this it really side by side shows the difference between Marigny Bywater on this picture, one with the one-way sign in it, and then the quarter right beside that to your right. So you can kind of see the difference. A little more greenery and trees in Marigny and Bywater, but very similar style homes, very similar style streets, and everything's real close to the road and real close together. And all, between the 1700s, 1800s, homes that are just absolutely gorgeous. Down below that, I think I just got the top of the quarter on that one. That's Royal Street. And then that one is the one on the bottom, my bottom right is Cafe de Monde in City Park. So that's what it looks like on the outside. Then you can go and sit down on the inside as well. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up. This was much longer than I thought it was gonna be. I'm gonna need anyway. I wanted to let you see this though, and I want everybody a chance to hear my favorite places in New Orleans anyway. And I'm hoping that all of you have a great day, and I hope this was helpful in some way. And thanks so much. Bye bye.